I'm Teacher Mike, and today I'm giving you my top 10 rules for learning a new language. And I already have videos about how to improve your speaking, how to improve your grammar, how to improve your listening, etc. So today's video is more about the habits and the mindset that I believe you need to have in order to successfully learn a new language. Rule number 1 is be consistent, which basically means study the same amount each week and don't take days off. Don't do 5 days one week and then 1 day the next week. If your goal is 5 days, always do 5 days. Also, the easiest way to stay consistent is to make studying a part of your daily routine by always studying in the same place and at the same time. And I recommend studying at least 5 days per week, even if it's only 15 to 30 minutes each day. This is because when you're learning a new language, it's difficult to start feeling comfortable with the language when you have periods of 2 or 3 whole days in which you are not using it. Having long periods of time in which you do not use the language also makes it more difficult to remember the things that you have just learned. And this leads us to rule number 2, which is to spend about 25% of your study time reviewing the things that you learned earlier in the week or earlier in the month. Hearing a word one time or reading the definition of a word one time does not mean that you really understand that word, and it definitely does not mean that you are going to be able to use it easily in conversation. To really understand a word and be able to use it well, you need to see, hear, and use that word many times in many different situations. When you see or hear a new word and you want to be able to remember it and use it in the future, you need to write it down. And after you write it down, I then recommend writing 3 to 10 sentences with it and creating a flashcard for it. You should probably be learning at least 5 new words each day, and this means that each day you will have about 5 new flashcards and at least 10 new sentences. For about 2 weeks, review those sentences and those flashcards for about 10 to 45 minutes each day. When you feel like you know one of the words really well, you can stop reviewing that one and focus more on the other ones. However, every couple weeks, you should also go back and review the old flashcards and old sentences that you haven't reviewed recently. This part is really important because even if you felt like you knew the words really well after reviewing them every day for 2 or 3 weeks, you still need to come back and review them occasionally if you want to be able to remember them long term. Also, go back and watch old videos that you've already watched before, even if you felt like you already understood them 100% the first time that you watched them. You might understand everything the first time that you watch a video, but you're almost never going to remember everything the first time. And even if you do remember everything, the second time you watch it, you might just notice something new or interesting that you didn't notice the first time. This is also just a really good way to check how much your listening has improved since the last time you watched the video. Number 3 is be patient. Learning a language can take a very long time. Unless you are studying, listening, and practicing speaking for several hours each day, you're probably not going to be fluent in just 1 year. And even if you do become fluent in just 1 or 2 years, you're still going to spend the rest of your life learning new words. If you want to learn a language fast, you can. But if you don't have the time, energy, or motivation to do the things that are necessary in order to learn a language fast, you need to accept the fact that you're probably going to be learning for the next 2 to 20 years. Number 4 is listen to the language every day. Teacher, I don't understand native speakers in conversation. Yeah, that's because you never practiced listening to native speakers in conversation. The more you do something, the easier it gets. And when you're listening, you don't need to understand everything that you hear. You're mostly listening to become familiar with how the language sounds and to hear words pronounced correctly again and again, even if you don't understand what they mean. That way, when you learn new words in the future, you already know how they should sound because you've already heard them pronounced correctly a million times before. So every day, listen to native speakers for as much time as you can. And before we go to number 5, if you are finding this video useful, please don't forget to hit the like button. Doing this really helps my channel, and it also helps other learners like you because it tells them that this is a good video to watch. 5. Make lots of mistakes, but try to never make the same mistake twice. It is important to make mistakes when you are learning. Every time you make a mistake, you learn that something is wrong, and that is an opportunity to learn what is right. You actually need to make mistakes in order to learn what you know and what you don't know, what you're good at and what you're bad at, and what is correct and what is incorrect. However, every time you make a mistake, your goal should be to never make that same mistake again. When you learn that something is wrong, do your best to learn why it's wrong and how to make it right. And if it's a mistake that you think you might make again in the future, write down the correct way to say it and review. And number 6 is don't waste time caring about what other people think about your English if they aren't trying to help you. So many people are afraid of speaking in front of other people because they're worried that someone is going to laugh at them or say something mean to them. The truth is that 99% of people don't care how good or bad your English is. And if a friend, family member, or coworker tries to make you feel bad about your English, tell them to stop. Or if it's someone who you don't know, just ignore them. They're clearly not a good person, and there's no reason to waste your time caring about what they think. Number 7 is don't compare yourself to other people. Sometimes comparing yourself to other people can be okay. But here's the problem. So many language learners compare themselves to people who have worked a lot harder than they have, or have had a lot more opportunities than they have had. People say things like, "My friend speaks English so well. I want to speak just like her. It's not fair." You know what? It is fair. She has worked harder than you. She has spent more time studying than you have. She has spent money on English classes. She has probably done a lot of things that you haven't done. So instead of saying it's not fair, just ask your friend what she has done and then go do the same things. But if you don't have the time, money, or motivation to do those same things, then stop comparing yourself to that person. Number 8 is learn from everything and everyone. Many of the people who follow me on Facebook have told me that I am the only English teacher that they follow. It's nice to hear that. I mean, I appreciate that, But it's sad to think that they are only learning from one teacher when there are hundreds of teachers out there who are talking about different topics and teaching with different teaching styles. When there are so many free resources available, it doesn't make sense to limit yourself to just one. And sometimes I make videos about topics like dogs, cooking, alcohol, holidays, and people say things like, "This topic doesn't interest me." Learning new vocabulary doesn't interest you? That's weird because just yesterday you were asking me how to improve your vocabulary. You can't just learn about things that you like or things that you already know a lot about, because in life you're going to need to talk about everything, not just the things that you like. You don't drink alcohol? That's great, but it doesn't matter. You can still use a video about alcohol to improve your grammar, vocabulary, listening, and pronunciation. Plus, even if you don't drink alcohol, at some point in your life, you're probably going to be around alcohol or talking to someone who does drink alcohol, and that vocabulary will be useful. And number 10 is don't just study, practice. When I make these videos, I often use the word study, but what I really mean when I say study is use the language. Reading a grammar textbook is one way of using the language, and it can be a good thing to do sometimes. But if that's the only thing that you ever do, you're never going to be able to speak or listen well. If you want to get good at speaking, you need to practice speaking. If you want to get good at listening, you need to practice listening. And if you're not sure how to practice speaking or how to practice listening, you should definitely check out these videos right here.